What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by no co-host. Alex is a little bit busy today. He's moving. Congrats to him. But today I am here to talk about the New York Giants salary cap space post free agency. Now, the Giants spent a lot of money this offseason. Javon Holland got paid $15 million a year. Paulson and Debo came in at over $17 million a year. They gave $4 million to Jameis Winston per year. They gave Russell Wilson $10 million and a half this year, and some other signings sprinkled in there. So quite a lot of money spent by Joe Schoen and company. Where does that leave the New York Giants in cap space just under a month from the NFL draft? Well, they're tight. They do not have a lot of money left over. I know there were other players that we discussed in free agency that we said, hey, maybe they could pick him up before the NFL draft. Maybe they could make another upgrade here or there, guard or tackle, wherever, defensive tackle, that is. Ultimately, that's going to be tough, and I'm going to break down the reasons why and also talk about how restructuring contracts used to be an option for the Giants. It's now become a necessity for the New York Giants. They're going to have to make some sort of move to restructure some deals and create some salary cap space. So let's go ahead and waste no more time. I'm going to go ahead and dive into the salary cap space for the New York Giants. According to Over the Cap, the Giants currently have $12.9 million in cap space, team cap space, but the real number that you want to take a look at is effective cap space. Now, effective cap space is defined as the cap space a team will have after signing at least 51 players and its projected rookie class to its roster. So the effective cap space is going to take into account the rookie draft class coming up that the Giants need to allocate money towards, and it's also going to take into account on Over the Cap Russell Wilson's contract. That initial figure that I mentioned, that $12.9 million, does not have Russell Wilson's contract included. So if you look at the Giants' effective cap space, they have the 31st ranked salary cap situation in the NFL. They have less money than everybody other than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have negative $4.5 million in effective salary cap space. That's how much money they actually have left to spend. So they don't have that $12.9 million. If you log on to Over the Cap, you'll say, hey, the Giants still have $12 million to spend. Why don't they go get a right guard? They don't. They've got negative $5 million in cap space to spend once you allocate that money towards the upcoming rookie draft class. Keep in mind, guys, the Giants have a lot of draft picks. They have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, 2 third-round picks, and they've got some additional late-round picks as well. I think they have 2 seventh-round picks. This is why I think the Giants are probably going to make some trades, get rid of a few of those picks. Somebody brought up the idea on the Giants Collective live stream, why not trade for Joe Milton? And initially the whole panel was like, well, it doesn't make sense. Why not just draft a quarterback in the 3rd round? And I said, hey, wait, Joe Milton's on a 6th-round prospect or 6th-round rookie contract. A 3rd-round rookie contract is twice the price. So there is incentive. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying the Giants are going to trade for Joe Milton or that they should, but just using that as an example, trading away some of this premium draft capital will lower salary cap hits if the Giants decide to trade down a few spots in the 3rd round or in the 4th round, or maybe trade a 3rd-round pick to get a future 2nd-round pick, something like that. You could see something like that happening due to the salary cap restraints that the New York Giants now have, ineffective salary cap space being so negative. So those are some moves that I think you need to keep an eye on over the next month. I think you'll see very minimal free agency acquisitions from the Giants leading up to the drafts, but I do think some trades could happen in order to free some cap space or to lower the price tag of the Giants draft class. And I absolutely think, and I know, they will make some sort of contract restructurings. Another thing to keep an eye on, do the Giants extend any contracts? Doesn't have to happen before the NFL draft. Also keep this in mind. I'm mentioning that the Giants need to get their rookie class under contract. They don't sign those contracts until training camp, basically. Like, not until July when those guys report to the building for training camp. Or it's like a week prior to training camp when the rookies initially report. We've got a long time before those rookies actually put pen to paper. So the Giants are in no rush to make any of the forthcoming salary cap moves that I'm going to mention. But at some point, they will need to make them. So like I said earlier, restructuring a contract no longer just an option, but now has become a necessity. And we're going to talk about some of the contracts that the Giants could restructure. But again, I want to also bring up this alternative option. They could extend some contracts to free up some money. Now, extensions lower initial cap hits and then spreads the money out towards the following subsequent seasons that you extend the player on. Now, the question would be, who would the Giants possibly want to extend? Not a lot of people. They don't have a lot of players due for extension that you probably want to hand money to, but some players who are entering contract years include Wan'Dale Robinson. He is due for an extension. Don't know if the Giants would realistically want to give him one, but he is eligible for one. And I think the other one that should probably be in the running to get an extension is Micah McFadden. Micah McFadden has kind of established himself as one of the Giants' starting core defensive pieces here over the last few years. A former fifth-round pick who's really come on, over 130 tackles, or 100 tackles, I think 130, I don't know. You guys know who he is. He's been consistent, over 100 combined tackles each season. Yes, his missed tackle rate might be high, and I understand that's a concern for a lot of Giants fans, but also look at the context. Oftentimes he misses tackles by shooting a gap, getting in the backfield, missing the tackle on the running back, but disrupting him. Now the running back is scrambling and gets tackled by somebody else for a loss or at the line of scrimmage. Those are effective plays. Yes, they're missed tackles, and yeah, if he made the initial tackle, it would have been a loss of 5 yards, but making that play, make that tackle for loss that the other player got was made possible by Micah McFadden. So he's still a very valuable player that I think Giants fans do, personally, I think, underrate quite significantly. And because he is a little bit underrated, you could probably sign him for a relatively affordable price point. The linebacker market has been moving. They're getting paid more and more like every other position. I think now is the time. Don't wait until next offseason, because if you wait till next offseason and Micah McFadden walks in free agency, guess what's a new need for the Giants? Linebacker, because Bobby Okereke will be in the final year of his contract. So I actually think the Giants should work, do their due diligence, and get a deal done with Micah McFadden. It won't cost you a ton, but it'll prevent a lot of uncertainty next offseason if you get that deal done, and it will lower his cap hit this season to free up a little bit more money. In fact, I'll give you the exact number that the Giants could free up by extending Micah McFadden, and that number is $1.8 million. That doesn't sound like a ton, but it's actually quite significant when you are $4.5 million over the salary cap in effective cap space. So I think the Giants should look to extend Micah McFadden. That should be one of their first moves to free up cap space. Now, let's talk about these contract restructurings. I've kind of stalled, put it off long enough. I wanted to kind of go through all of the context of the salary cap before we got there. But these are going to be the solutions to the Giants freeing up salary cap space. And there's 3 players in particular who stand out here. And they're the 3 players with the highest base salaries on the team this season and the highest cap hits. So number 1 cap hit on the Giants books this upcoming season, $29.75 million for Brian Burns. That number can be lowered rather significantly. They can restructure up to a maximum of $16.18 million with Brian Burns' contract. So yes, that 16.18 will be restructured and then moved across the subsequent seasons that he's on the roster. His contract runs through 2028. So the Giants would then take that 16, they would chop it up, and the following 3 years on the contract, they're going to be a little bit higher cap hits. That's how that works for restructuring contracts. You just spread that $16 million across the next several years. But I think that makes sense because Brian Burns on a $30 million per season deal, the way the market is moving on pass rushers actually kind of looks like a steal now. Last offseason, I think there were Giants fans who were like, that's a lot of money. Maybe it's an overpay. Well, you just saw Max Crosby get paid almost $40 million per season. Myles Garrett got over $40 million per season. Micah Parsons is due for extension. He might make over $40 million per season. I know that Brian Burns is not the same caliber of player as those guys, but he is a star pass rusher, so $30 million per season for him makes sense. And if you're raising that salary cap or that cap hit by restructuring him, it's only going to be a few million, and his highest cap hit comes in 2028 at $32.5 million. So essentially, okay, now you're paying him $36 in 2028. That's probably going to be the price for an average pass rusher the way that contracts are moving in the NFL these days. So I actually think that the Giants can get away with restructuring Brian Burns' deal because they signed him to a pretty solid price tag. Now the next player that I think the Giants could consider restructuring, coming in at a $23.8 million cap hit, is no other than, do the dance, Sexy Dexy, Dexter Lawrence. If they restructure Dexter Lawrence's contract, they can free $9.88 million in cap space. Again, that 9.88 will get spread across the next 2 years of his contract. His contract does expire in 2027. But the reason why I don't think they're going to want to restructure Dexter Lawrence's deal is because they already have before. Dexter Lawrence has that $23 million cap hit right now that I mentioned, but that's because they've restructured his deal. In 2026, his cap hit jumps to $27 million. In 2027, it jumps all the way up to $29 million. So if you restructure his deal, you're going to be adding that 2027 cap hit is going to be well in the $30 million range after restructuring his deal. So I think they would probably prefer to avoid restructuring Dexter Lawrence since they've already done that before. Unless they feel confident between now and 2027, they are going to extend him for several more years. But I don't think they want to take that chance, though, and balloon his cap hit too much over the next few seasons. So yes, Dexter Lawrence is an option for them, but I don't think it's likely that they actually end up restructuring his contract. Andrew Thomas is the next guy on the list, and this one makes sense as well because they could free up $12.5 million in cap space if they restructure Andrew Thomas's contract. But the reason why it wouldn't make sense is because he's been hurt a lot, and maybe you don't want to add more of a cap burden for a player who hasn't seen the field a ton over the last several seasons. So they might hold off on this one as well, but let's go through it. He currently has this season a $21 million cap hit. So they can restructure it, bring that down, sure. But in 2026, he's under contract at $21 million again. 2027, he's under contract. It goes up to $23 million. That's not bad. 2028, he's under contract again at $23 million. And 2029, just under $23 million. But there is no dead money on that final year of his deal, so the Giants could cut him and completely save that $22.9 million in 2029. Unless they restructure his contract, then they will have dead money on the back end of this deal. So if the Giants don't feel confident that Andrew Thomas is going to be here for the remainder of his contract, then they should not restructure his deal. And again, maybe you feel confident that he will be because he is one of the best tackles in the NFL when he's healthy, but being healthy has been a challenge for him, and typically you don't want to restructure the contracts of an injured player just in case you get buyer's remorse and you need to get out of that contract. Again, I don't think that will happen with Thomas. I think Thomas is a tremendous player. I think he should be healthy this year with some better players around him. I think that's going to help. However, you are opening yourself up to risk if you restructure the contract of an injury-prone player such as Andrew Thomas. So he is under contract the longest of anybody on the team. He's the only player still under contract for the 2029 season, but his cap hit then at $22.9 million, if he's healthy and he's playing at a high level, will look like an absolute steal in this market for left tackles. That is an unequivocal truth. But if the Giants restructure his contract, it will be a little bit higher of a cap hit, still probably will look like a steal, but the dead money will also rise, so the Giants will not be able to cut him without incurring some sort of a penalty down the line. So that's something that they do need to keep in mind. If I had to make my predictions, though, I think the Giants will restructure Brian Burns' contract. I think they might restructure some of Andrew Thomas's contract. And then if there's anybody who they might look to extend, Bobby Okereke is also a candidate for extension. And I think Micah McFadden is a candidate for extension. I think the Giants can pick between one of those two guys and then let the other one play out the 2025 season under their contract. And Bobby Okereke's expires after 2026 as well. So that's the full breakdown. That's what the Giants' salary cap looks like right now. They don't have any money. They have negative $5 million basically, and they need to get that $5 million back, plus add about $10 million in cap space that they can utilize throughout the regular season, just in case of injuries or emergency funding really is what they need. So they need about $10 million in emergency fund. And when you look at it, if you max restructure Brian Burns for $16 million in one swing, you accomplish both of those tasks. You free up enough money to get back to zero, and you free up $10 million to keep yourself financially flexible for any moves during the season. So that is what I think the Giants are going to do. But again, I listed a few of their options. They do have a lot of options. Those are not the only contracts that they can restructure. They can also free up money by restructuring the likes of Okereke, which I don't think they would. But John Runyon Jr., Paulson Adebo, I know they just signed him, but you can technically restructure contracts that you just signed. Javon Holland as well, and a few others. I don't know if they're going to realistically cut anybody. I know the idea of releasing some players has been brought up before, like Rakeem Nunez-Roches. They can save $3.6 million by cutting him. In theory, sure, that makes sense. However, he is a necessary player for a defensive line that doesn't have any depth. Maybe after the draft, if the Giants added premier talent, then they think about cutting him, maybe closer into in training camp. Then you could cut him. Then that would be a post-June 1st cut, $3.6 million still. And the other one would be Graham Gano, $4.4 million. They could cut him. That's for the post-June 1st designation. The pre-June 1st would be $3.16 million. I don't know if those guys realistically get cut because I don't know who their replacements would be. But if the Giants do find replacements between now and training camp, yes, maybe that becomes a discussion later on. But right now, I think what's most likely is the New York Giants will restructure a contract soon, or sign an extension with one of their players soon, or maybe do both. But like I said, bottom line is, the Giants are $5 million in the red. They got to get $5 million back, and they probably need to add an extra $10 million for flexibility and emergency purposes. We'll see how they get that done. Of course, whenever they make any moves that affect their salary cap space, you will hear about it right here on Fireside Giants. So, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.